Hello and welcome to Ukraine Beyond the Lines with Zarina Zabrisky. We are bringing you reports from the site and the latest from the war in Ukraine. How are you doing today, Zarina?
Hi, interesting, I would say. I'm in Chernobyl. That's probably enough said.
So, why are you there? More importantly, why are you there now during the war?
Let me first tell you my exact location. I'm about 5 minutes away, 10 minutes most drive from the Chernobyl power plant, a site of the worst nuclear power accident in the history of the world. And this place is called Pripyat, which is currently a ghost town, and it used to be a satellite city. And behind me, you see the most infamous Ferris wheel in the world. That was supposed to launch on May 1st, 1986. On April 26th, at 1:35 at night, the explosion happened. This is a really eerie feeling, I can tell you. And I will take you around for a little trip. We are in Pripyat. This is the central square, the house of culture called Energetic, the work of the energy industry. This is the hotel called Pripyat. This is where the military stayed during the first day after the 1986 accident. This is called the White House, where the city authorities lived. Right now it is even more deserted than before the war of 2022 because no tourists are allowed and very few journalists. I'm all alone here, eye to eye with the Soviet Union coat of arms. This is 2022, September 5th, and in front of you, you see toilet seats, and I am told that they were brought here by the Russian military, allegedly, who are known to be stealing toilet seats from all over Ukraine. In this case, these toilet seats could have come from the radiation-infested Pripyat apartments abandoned 30 years ago. I don't have any reasoning for it. I don't have any comments. I'm just showing you what I see here. I'm the only person here right now because the access to the area is not allowed for most. It took me 2 weeks to get this pass to come here as a journalist. The station right now, Claudia, is not generating any power, as we have discussed in detail during our last show, but it is still a dangerous place. Many believe now that reactor number 4 that exploded in 1986 is safely maintained under the special confinement, sometimes called ARC. Behind me, you see the confinement. This is where the nuclear reactor that exploded in 1986 is currently buried. Unfortunately, we cannot show you anymore right now because of the war. As we have mentioned, nuclear fuel continues to be active for hundreds of thousands of years. This particular type, I'm told, is 24,000 years. So it is critical to keep it cooled in special storage. I came here to show you and the world that what can happen at a nuclear power station is extremely dangerous, and especially what can happen at the nuclear power station during the war. And that is because another nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, is currently still occupied by the Russian army. And we talked about it, but the situation intensifies by a day. This week, the International Atomic Energy Agency visited Zaporizhzhia for a few hours only after 2 days of traveling around artillery fire. And They left representatives on site, just two, and the head of the agency spoke up at a press conference in a rather vague way, I should add. The International Atomic Energy Agency promised to produce a detailed report, and fair enough, as the IAEA monitors nuclear industry objects and makes safety recommendations only. The agency does not have a right to impose any sanctions or take any actions. This would be a step for the United Nations, for instance. The aggressor can be excluded from the Security Council. But the most important recommendation that IAEA can make, and should make, I would say, is the demilitarization of all nuclear plants, including Zaporizhzhia, especially since there are reports of shelling in the vicinity of yet another nuclear power plant in Ukraine, Yuzhno-Sakhalinskaya. So, Claudia, I'm here too because this week Chernobyl was trending on social media a few times, not just once. First time in connection with Mikhail Gorbachev's death, which is a big event in history, in modern history. The accident in Chernobyl happened during his time of being in power, and Gorbachev once said that accident led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. Chernobyl was in the news yesterday as well, because many fear that the explosive situation at Zaporizhzhia can lead to a similar accident.
Wow, well, I can definitely see why this story is so important to follow, and visiting the station totally makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm going to move around a little bit to show you another little carousel that never got to work and never got to take children on the rides. It's quite rusty right now, like pretty much everything in this town. I spoke to many people today at Eco Center, the government agency that monitors all the activities in terms of radioactive safety in the zone. And it is called the alienation zone, Claudia, because people are not being let in. And before the war, there was quite a bit of tourism. So there's literally no one right now in the whole Pripyat town. It's really hard to get a pass, and it's really hard to get here. They really check you at the blog posts and so forth.
Now, Zarina, many have watched movies, especially the HBO Chernobyl, or played computer games designed around Chernobyl. It is just a phrase for many, and here you are right there in the flesh. How does it feel, and what struck you the most so far?
It is such an eerie feeling, Claudia. It's really probably, well, maybe not the strangest day of my life. I had many, but one of the strangest ever. Just walking around this abandoned Soviet city with empty windows, empty doorways, with jungles grown all over the blocks of flats. It just blows your mind. I will have to process it for a long time, and I will get back to you with the answer what struck me most. But you know, the landscape here and the power station, I am really overwhelmed, and I will share the footage, and we'll all get to walk around Pripyat and wherever we can walk in the ancient city of Chernobyl. But for now, I'm really speechless. I have seen a lot of destruction on my way to the station as well. You know, I had to travel here through the ancient city of Chernihiv, one of the oldest in Ukraine. And the Russian army besieged the city in the beginning of the invasion and destroyed parts of it and many villages around it. And I went there as well and spoke to the people there.
У мене 3 дочки, і всіх 3 погоріли хати. І немає одної, щоб була хата. В нашому селі тут. У мене стара хата була. Да, сталася, лучше було стару розбило, а ця, щоб була. Да, дітки зійшлись, да її трошки, як кобили, так оце там і сидимо. Одна, так туди побігла на своє погоріще. І не чую нічого, не бачу. І так. Оце вийти на колясці, виплутаюсь, да і сажу. на сонечку. Жарко, деку туди в холодочок, у садок іду. Не знаю, донька, чи будемо строїти. Багато ж треба грошей, щоб построїти.
I'm in Novosolovka. This is Chernihiv Oblast, and this is the area that was damaged probably the worst. The driver who's taking me around told me that the worst part were the planes, and that compared to the artillery fire, it's probably worse in terms of the damage that they can cause. It just goes on and on. This is another site in Novosilovka where many homes were burned and boned and damaged. There's more rubble here, and so it just goes on and on.
Wow, that was really disturbing to watch. Did you come to Chernobyl straight from there? That must have been really hard for you.
It is kind of hard, but fortunately, on the way, I stopped in Kyiv to get my Chernobyl pass and meet my guide. And I also went for a very special event, and I want to speak about it a little bit. That was a photo exhibit put together by the wives, mothers, and sisters of Azovstal defenders, soldiers from Mariupol. I'm currently working on a story covering the Azov regiment and other units that were defending the last of Mariupol. These women have been fighting to liberate their husbands for months by now. So they went to see the Pope and appealed to Chinese and Turkish presidents. They are relentless at telling their stories and demanding freedom for their loved ones. They have a simple message. Our guys fought to stop the destruction. And Claudia, you and everybody else just saw the destruction in Chernihiv. They fought to ensure safety for everyone. And I see this in Kyiv because here things are lovely. It's a lovely summer, the last days of summer. People are enjoying cafes and walking down the street. You really forget about the war sometimes. And that's what the Azov regiment soldiers fought for. They fought for Ukraine. And now those who are still alive are prisoners of war, kept in horrid conditions in Russian prison. The wives insist that they need to be exchanged for Russian prisoners of war and brought back. The Russian government refuses to do this, as the main excuse for the war is denazification, according to the Kremlin, and they falsely accuse the Azovstal defenders of being Nazis. I am working on this story now and just did a long interview on the history of Azov regiment, and we will be following up on that in the nearest future.
Azovstal is a steel plant in Mariupol that was besieged by the Russian occupational forces in March 2022. After almost 3 months of resistance, about 2,500 defenders surrendered on May 17th, following the order of the Ukrainian President and Commander-in-Chief, Vladimir Zelensky. Most of them were kept in Olenivka, a pre-trial detention center in the Donetsk Oblast, and only a few were exchanged for Russian prisoners of war. On July 29th, more than 50 Ukrainian prisoners of war were killed in Olenivka. Russian proxy state authorities and Kremlin press claim that the Ukrainian military used an American HIMARS rocket to kill their own servicemen in order to prevent them from talking about alleged war crimes. Ukrainian authorities denied the claims and accused Russia of committing a terrorist act to hide the evidence of torture. Based on the situational analysis, independent Western military experts and CNN journalists came to the conclusion that the Russian version was most likely a fabrication. Families have not heard anything about their loved ones for 2 or 3 months. They appeal to the international community and leaders to help organize the exchange.
Мене звати Ярослава, мого чоловіка звати Миколай. Він знаходиться зараз в полоні в Оленівці. Він захищав Маріуполь, Азовсталь. Також в полоні знаходяться мої 2 зятя. які також захищали Маріуполь. З чоловіком не бачилися вже півроку.
Я Оксанчук Наталія. Мій син знаходиться в Оленівці, захищав Азовсталь.
Я Тетяна, мій син, звати його Владислав, служив в Азові, захищав Маріуполь, Азовсталь, також знаходиться в Оленівці в полоні.
Мене звати Влада, а мого нареченого звати Павло. А він в територіальній обороні, захищав Маріуполь на Азовсталі. А де він, я не знаю.
Мене звати Вікторія, чоловіка мого звати Олексій. Він захищав Маріуполь, також захищав Азовсталь. З чоловіком я не бачила вже більше півроку. Це наші дітки з ним, Нікіта і Ніколь.
Мене звати Лела, мій брат військовий Збройних сил України. Він у полоні вже 94 дні. З ним немає зв'язку, я не знаю, як він. Ми чекаємо наших рідних додому.
Hello, my name is Natalie. My brother is Artyom. He is a defender of Mariupol. Free my brother.
Меня зовут Оля, моего мужа зовут Дмитрий. Он служит в территориальной обороне, защищал тоже Мариуполь и Азовсталь. Не видела его уже полгода и не слышала 4 месяца.
Я Оксана. Мого сина звати Артур. Він був в Маріуполі на Азовсталі. Зараз він в Оленівці знаходиться. Я дитини не бачила вже більше ніж півроку.
Free Azov! Free Azov! Free Azov! Free Azov!
What remarkable women and what a fate. I'll definitely be looking forward to a more detailed show on them and hoping for some good news. Did you have any other meetings worth mentioning while in Kyiv?
Yes, I mean, there are so many interesting people in Kyiv now. And I actually ran into a legendary journalist, John Sweeney. He's an outstanding war correspondent who's been to every military operation during the last decades. He worked for the BBC for a long time, but left to be independent. And he actually, immortally, made both Putin and Trump run away from him with just his questions. He is also very funny. I met him through Byline Times that Bywire News is working together with. And I worked with him on a couple of Putin-related investigative pieces. So I'm lucky that way. He just launched his new book, The Killer in the Kremlin, and it is a major bestseller. So we talked about the book, and I'm honored to say that some of my research is included in the book, some quotes, and also about his visit to the front line. Let's listen to John. Here we are with John Sweeney in Kyiv, and John Sweeney hardly needs any introduction, and we're speaking for Bywire News behind the line with Zarina Zabrisky. So John, can you tell our audience why is it important to follow the events in Ukraine, to follow this war and know what's happening here?
It is vital to understand what is happening here because the Ukrainians are telling us something that we've forgotten, that democracy must be defended and free speech does not come free. I can only talk to you, Zarina, right now, and you can only ask me questions because down in the south and the east of Ukraine, the Ukrainian army is fighting like tigers against Vladimir Putin's killing machine. This is a killing machine that rapes, that castrates, that kills kids. And Ukraine is doing something marvelous. It is fighting back and fighting very well. Also, as a journalist, I feel passionately that it's very, very important to go and see for yourself. So I'm not just parroting this stuff. I went to Bakhmut, which is on the front line. I was told that the Russian army was maybe 5 miles away, but when I got to the observation point, the bloke in the observation point said, no, they're in those woods and on the other side of the railway line, we think. And that wasn't 5 miles away, it was like 1,000 yards away, so that wasn't, but nevertheless, what was absolutely true was the guys in the trench system I was in were full of fun, They gave me a cup of tea. I had my helmet on and my flak jacket, but their spirit was amazingly good. And I have seen, been a war reporter for 30-something years, and I have never seen an army with greater fighting spirit, ever. And I'm an admirer. The British Army did some bad things in Northern Ireland, but I saw it close up in Bosnia, and there it was good, and the boys knew what they were doing, and they knew what it was good. But the Ukrainian fighting spirit is better than the British Army in Iraq, in Bosnia and Afghanistan, the American Army in Iraq, which I've seen close up, the Russian Army in Chechnya, which I've seen the results of their work, and I've seen Russian soldiers that work in Chechnya, and also some of the other wars I've been to, and some of the other bits of horror I've seen. I have never seen an army which so passionately believes that what they're doing is right, and all they're doing is defending their homes. So it's incredibly important to follow, to write to your MPs and your senators or whatever, and say, listen, we've got to support Ukraine, because it isn't their fight, it's our fight. And the assumption that democracy and peace and foreign holidays and cheap gas, those are not givens. Those are not givens. And right now, the master of the Kremlin is seeking to make the world shiver this winter, and to make the people in Africa and the Middle East starve, because he wants to destroy Ukraine, and he's using these great weapons of starvation and cold, because of the price of gas and oil has gone, because of his stupid war. So the best possible thing to end this nightmare is to end it as quickly as possible, and to do that we have to give money and heavy metal, tanks and guns and all the other military hardware to the Ukrainians. We have the tools, we need to give them to the Ukrainians so they can finish the job. And that is why you've got to follow the war.
That's exactly so, and this is why I recommend everyone to follow John Sweeney on Twitter, to read his book, to read the articles that he writes, and to follow Bywire News Behind the Line with Zarina Zabrisky.
That is super, super cool. Independent journalism is so important. I'm going to read the book. It sounds so awesome, and sounds like Kyiv treated you very well.
Yes, definitely. I didn't have time to do much, but I can tell you that the city is vibrating with good energy. It's not like the ghost city of Pripyat behind me. People are literally dancing in the street, and so much music is being played, and art is everywhere. I can tell you that the morale, with this kind of morale, country is destined to win, I think. Morale is really important. And I don't want to simplify anything. And you have just seen the destruction and tragedy in Chernihiv, and the dangers of the nuclear power plant, and the excruciating weight and pain of the Azov families. Not everyone is dancing, and not everything is straightforward or perfect. And yet, to find the strength to dance and sing in the face of this pain is what makes Ukraine, Ukraine.
Really unexpected and truly something else. What a spirit. Thank you for sharing this and be safe on your way back. Please tell us where you're off to next.
Well, thank you. I'm still looking forward to the rest of my day in Chernobyl, and who knows what that will bring. As for my next destination, I can only tell you that I'm taking an all-day bus to one of the best places on earth, and I can't wait. So more about this next time. And meanwhile, please subscribe, like, share, and stay with us. And thanks for traveling with Behind the Line.
Thanks again. See you next time.